Scott, and this is GreatScott Knitting, episode 38. Today is Sunday, November 6th, the start of standard time, the end of daylight savings time for 2022. This is really my favorite, period. I like standard time. I like this whole idea of falling back, and personally, I don't want to spring forward again, ever. But again, that's not one of those things that's up to me. I just have to figure out how to deal with it when that happens. Anyway, welcome in to all of you returning viewers. Welcome back, and to those of you who are new to this channel. Especially those of you who are new, just recently as we went through October and the Vlogtober experience. Welcome. I'm so glad you are here. I hope you enjoy what you find here and that you stick around to find out what's going to happen next, because I don't know. So today is a standard post, one could say. Now, how often I'm going to do standard posts, I cannot say. It might be every week, it might be every other week, it might be once a month, it might be, I don't know. What we will have, it is a mystery to me, it is a mystery to you, and we'll all find out where we lined up in the end. But here it is. This is my little corner of the internet, my little spot on YouTube, where I talk about knitting, where I talk about yarn dyeing, where I talk about my view of things in the world and my view of things in the knitterly, in the knitterverse, I guess one could call it. I don't know. And, you know, also, what am I doing? What am I not doing? What am I watching? What am I listening to? All those kinds of things might come up in this podcast. They might not. Who knows? So let's see where we're going. So what I can say is I'll be talking about some of the things that I finished during October. We'll be talking some of the things that are still on my needles, or that are recently on my needles. We'll talk about we're going to talk a little, we're going to kind of wrap up the 2022 mystery knit along from Westknits, and maybe kind of do a deeper dive into my impressions of Mr. West's designs and patterns and impact that he has. So that's what I think will be happening today in terms of the lineup. So let's dive in. So what have I finished? Well, in October for me was a Stephen West month. I think I knit nothing else other than Stephen West patterns during the month of October. So the first thing I finished up was Color Craving, which I think is the mystery knit along from 2013. If I'm correct, and just recently watched the live episode that Irina Shar and Martin of Knit 365 did to wrap up their MKAL season, where they had a couple of guest people. They had the chief test knitter for Westknits and Mr. Stephen West himself. And he said that one of his absolute favorite mystery shawls was Color Craving, because it caused such a ruckus, because it was so unlike anything he had done before for a mystery knit along. And I will have to agree, it is a very different kind of shawl, a very different kind of construction from what he had done in the past, and really a lot of different from what he has done since, although he's done a lot of different constructions and different shapes. This one is definitely one of those that is out of the box. It's fun to knit. I will say that. I enjoyed knitting this quite a bit. And it gives you something that's very unique in your collection of shawls. Now, it is not going to be in everyone's wheelhouse in terms of shaping and knitting. And so some people may not enjoy knitting it at all, whereas others are going to really love it. I really enjoyed the process of knitting it. It was a very different, It's all garter stitch with a collection of large eyelet holes and small eyelet holes, and it's 3 color. So that makes it was a lot of fun. I had 3 colors that I had bought that I wanted to have go together. From the dyer is 316 Dye Studio, which is a local dyer here in Wichita, Kansas. And my 3 colors were, the main color, of course, is this cranberry. My contrast color was cherry blossom, which is a speckled yarn. You can see the little red speckles in it. And then my pop, or my kind of crazy color, my 3rd color was Fantastic Beasts, which was a gray base with multicolored speckles in it. So very fun, and I really enjoyed how that turned out in the final project. So very, very interesting, very fun. Not colors that I would normally pick and wear or choose, because of red is usually not one that I gravitate to. But it was fun. I really enjoyed knitting this piece. Of course, the second thing I finished during the month was, of course, the great and wonderful MKAL for 2022 Twists and Turns. Here it is in its final glory. Of course, it is so large that you really can't see it all. But there it is. So much fun. And I really like my colors. I really like how this has worked out. And you can see there on the cable embellishments that I chose one of the pops of color to be the main color, as opposed to the pop of color, the accent color. So I kind of like how that turned out. I really got a very sweet shout out earlier today. I don't know anybody who watches the podcast of Fiber Hustle with Aaron and Chip, but they had an episode today that they did live, and Aaron said something very sweet. He said that out of all the people he had seen complete this shawl, that he liked my color choices the best. I've seen a lot of really beautiful shawls out there. I don't know if it's mine is the best, but he likes it. I like it. I thought it was very, a very cohesive. I can't even talk here. I think it finally does go really well together. And okay, so let's talk about my yarn. I dyed it myself. So this is on a new base for me that I'd never dyed before, which is a Merino Cashmere Nylon blend. So an MCN base, which I think is an 80-10-10. So 80% merino wool, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. So there it is. The funness of the Twists and Turns shawl. Really do like it. So there's that. And I really the MCN base, that Merino Cashmere Nylon base, was really soft. It's very drapey, and I think it works really well. Worked really well for that project. So then as I finished, well, when I finished Color Craving, and was still awaiting Clue 4 to drop, I had nothing else on the needles. So if you watched during Vlogtober, you know that I cast on the Boneyard shawl, which is one of the very first patterns that he ever published, shawl patterns that he ever published. And I had never knit it. And I had some gift yarn, just some loops and threads, cozy wool merino that someone had gifted me. And so I used 2 skeins of that to create my Boneyard, which is, of course, you can see turns into it was quite a large shawl, but it's nice and cozy. It's a DK weight, which the pattern is a DK weight shawl, so it's nice. It has a nice heft to it, but yet it still has. It's not stiff. The the cozy wool merino is. Let me look. I can't remember its makeup, but it's surprisingly a nice yarn. It's 55% merino wool and 45% acrylic. So I know, some of us don't like acrylic at all, and some of us don't like big box store yarns. This was my bread and butter when I started knitting, and for years I only used acrylics and acrylic blends because that's what I could afford and that's what I had available to me. It wasn't until later when I first knit with a merino yarn, a merino, a 75-25 sock yarn, that I was like, I've got to start shifting my stash from acrylic yarns to merinos and wools and more natural fibers. But this is a lovely yarn. I don't know how long I don't even know if it's still available. But if you can get a hold of some of this, it's really nice. It has a great drape. These color this was a one is a solid, and the other one was a multicolor. The multicolor was in a colorway called Driftwood. So it had grays and creams and browns, and then I had a gray, just a standard gray solid that I paired with it. And you can see that I just striped it. But the way it's striped with a solid and a multicolor was very random. You don't get to see a lot of the Boneyard aspects of it unless you look at it sort of this way. I don't care. It's just going to be a utility shawl where, when I'm cold in the mornings in the house, I can just drape it around my shoulders and boom, there I am. Or if I'm going to go walk the dogs and I need something to wrap around my neck real quick to give myself that extra coziness, boom, here I go. I have a huge, very fluffy, extra coziness around my neck, and it's going to keep me very nicely warm. So yeah, great shawl, knits up really fast, and it works with just all sorts of yarns, and because it's texturally so simple. It really doesn't matter if you're using a highly variegated yarn or not, multicolor or not. It turns into a really pretty piece. So those were my finished objects, all Stephen West. It's crazy. So we'll talk a little bit more about Stephen West here in a little bit. But what do I have on the needles? So right now, I have a sock on the needle around here somewhere, but I'm not even going to really talk about my socks. It's one of those things that I turn to when I just really can't think of anything else and nothing else is turning me on. So, my work in progress is the Multidirectional Scarf by Karen Baumer. There it is. So it's the Multidirectional Scarf by Karen Baumer. Just kind of give you a sense of what that looks like. And so it works really well with self-striping, color fading types of yarn. And it just so happens that I have a whole mess of yarn that was gifted to me some time ago. And among that mess is a yarn from Universal Yarns called Classic Shades. And this is a where is it? 70% acrylic, 30% wool yarn. It is I would call it a heavy worsted or possibly Aran weight yarn. And it is kind of a light, it's almost a single, but there's definitely a twist. And it's basically, I would say it's almost like two singles twisted together. So it's very, very kind of splitty, but has a very woolen spun feel to it. It's not like a I don't have anything else like really easily floating around here. It's not like your standard, spin of yarn. It is very loose. It's very single ply type, as you can kind of tell. So, but it is, you can see there are multiple shades in that twist and multiple colors in that twist, which makes it very fun. So at first I was going to do cables with this yarn because here's the story. Here's even why I started this. 2 new dogs in the house, both German Shepherds, and my yarn stash, which you can see back here where my yarn stash is really accessible. And they're young, and one of them got a hold of one of my skeins of Classic Shades and proceeded to not chew it up. It's like it did not in any way was not in any way damaged, but the skein was entirely pulled apart. And so I had to well, it wasn't terribly tangled, but I had to wind it into a cake. And so once I had it wound into a cake, I was like, let's go ahead and use it. And so it kind of sat around during the month of October. And so I was pawing through my yarn stash for a yarn to use in a project. So I was again starting with the yarn, not starting with a project. So I started with the yarn and was like, great, okay, so I have this caked up thing of Classic Shades. What do I want to do with it? Started off looking at a cabled scarf, and I was like, you know what? Cables are better on, number one, with a solid color, and number two, with a more structured yarn. At least in my mind, I think a structured yarn helps those cables pop. And this being much more kind of lofty, much there's not a big twist to this yarn. I was like, I don't know that that's going to be the best option. And then I remembered that I had knit a multi-directional scarf, and I thought, oh, I think that would be really cool, because this yarn fades from one color combination to the next. And so that's when I determined to use this yarn in the multi-directional scarf. So the colorway is, I don't even know if it's on the ball band or not. Oh, no, it is. It's called Velvet Cloak. It is greens and browns and yellows and purples, which is a very interesting combination. So very cool colors, though. But here's how it's knitting up. Isn't that just like, I don't know, I'm loving it. I'm thinking it's so cool. Of course, you can tell right here, this is where I changed balls. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't really care. That there's you can really quickly and easily see a change of color of that it went from fading out of the color, then back into it real quick, and then continuing along over here on this side. But I'm just loving this. It's so pretty. And yes, it is mostly acrylic. It has a little touch of wool to it. And I think it's it's wonderful. And it's going to be so cozy. It's a perfect width, the way I'm knitting it, at least for me. And I think the colors are just delightful. So that is coming along. I'm going to do two balls of that, which would be approximately, each ball has 197 yards, so less than 400 yards of fiber, 200 grams of yarn for a nice quick little scarf, which I think will make a really lovely gift, especially for a gentleman. I think these are great gentlemanly colors that really anyone would love. But it's really a lovely pattern. It's a lot of fun. If you are interested in this pattern, it is a free pattern on Ravelry. So I'll put a link to it in the show notes. There are, I've seen a couple of variations that people have done with it in terms of adding some eyelet rows just in the midst of it. But yeah, if you have any of these types of colorways that sort of go from shades to shade to shade to shade in sort of a stripy fashion, or it would work. It works really lovely with that type of yarn. So yeah, so that is my work in progress. It probably won't take me much longer to finish that out, and I'll have to be on to something else. I still desire to knit on the Hallgrim scarf by Jamie McCanless. If you remember this lovely, beautiful, beautiful cabled scarf with twisted stitches. So that is definitely going to be something that I am going to be casting on at some point, I think this year. Again, I think it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous scarf pattern. But I'm not sure when I'm going to cast that on, because I'm really not sure what yarn I'm going to use. I have some ideas and I have some options over in my stash that I'm going to pull out and cast on with for that. I had thought about, making that not necessarily a knit along, but if you're interested in the Hallgrim scarf, I think I am going to, if you're interested in casting that on, I think I'm going to cast that on. I'm going to put a drop dead date on that. I'm going to say that I'm going to cast on the Hallgrim scarf on the 15th of November. So if you want to play along, and want to go with me, it is a paid for pattern in Ravelry. It's like $7. Grab that pattern, find a nice solid or heathered yarn. I think would be the best option for this cabled scarf, and maybe let's attack this puppy together. It looks just absolutely beautiful. And if you enjoy, especially if you enjoyed if you were involved in the knit along, and you enjoyed those cables, those twisted cables in the bands, I think this is going to be similar to that. So lots and lots of fun. All right. So, let's talk Stephen West a little bit. He is a dynamic character, an accomplished designer, an accomplished knitter, very good at teaching and explaining his patterns. He's a vocal proponent for knitting, a vocal proponent for color and the use of color in designs. As you can tell, if you've perused any of his shawls, any of his knitwear designs, you will see he loves to play with color, and he loves to combine colors in very interesting ways for himself. But there are also ways that if you take your own color combinations, that you will come up with a beautiful piece of art that you helped design because you chose the colors. He may design the shape, he may design the, put the stitches together, but when you get to choose the colors and you're the one who puts in the labor, you become part of the artistry of that item. It's just like when a musician plays a Brahms sonata. It's not, it's the artistry that you're experiencing isn't just the composer, but it's also in the performer. You as a knitter are part of that performance of that piece of art, that piece of knitwear. Yes, the designer is amazing. He's done some very exciting types of designs, and you choose one of those designs and you pick some colors and you use your instrument to perform that design. That finished piece of work is an expression of you as much as it is an expression of him. So someone asked, I think Arena asked this question a couple of times from several people. Do you ever feel like you're kind of just, that if you're wearing a Stephen West design, that you're just another person wearing another Stephen West design? And my thought is no. It's just like hearing hearing one person, one virtuoso, maybe Joshua Bell, performing a Brahms violin sonata, and then turning around and hearing that exact same Brahms violin sonata performed by Itzhak Perlman, they're very different. There's going to be different expressions that you hear in it. There's going to be something new and fresh that you will hear in each performance. And neither, one isn't better than the other, and it doesn't make me hearing those two different performances doesn't make me dislike or discount a Brahms violin sonata at all. I see them as two amazing performers performing an amazing piece. And so when I see knitters wearing color Craving, or if I saw a whole 20 or 30 people wearing twists and turns on the street, each one's going to be unique. Each one is knitted by a different person with different color schemes. There are hundreds of blue, gray, and yellow twists and turns out there. But mine, my particular shades of gray, my particular shades of blue, my particular shade of yellow is unique and different, and no one else has it, and nobody else knit that shawl but me. And so I am going to appreciate other people's performance of twists and turns, if you will, or any other of those shawls. The same goes for Andrea Mowry sweater. I think she does the love note, and people have knit the love note to death. Guess what? Each and every single one of them is an amazing piece that each knitter was able to put themselves into. And so even if you saw 30 people wearing love notes, each one's going to be unique in color, in style, in size, in shaping, because people bring themselves to it. When you just look into Ravelry and look at just his shawl patterns, dating back to the Boneyard shawl, up, as you look at some of his earlier shawls, there's some very basic triangular types of shawls, some very standard color combinations and color work, like the Vulpix. Check out this piece. I really, really like that stitch pattern. It's so cool. But then you start, like, I've met the Metalloose, which I have that one that I've shown during Vlogtober. Colors getting a little more vibrant, slip stitches have moved in, but still triangular shaped. And then you really start seeing his designs really kind of step out of the box, with Garter Breeze, Vertices Unite. Like this one, to me, this one's really out of the box. The shaping is reminiscent of a triangular shawl, but it is more a polygon or polyag. I'm not sure what term I'm thinking of geometrically, but it's not a perfectly shaped triangle. It is a polygon. It has four sides, but they're not. No side is the same length. So very cool. And I think from there, as we come forward in time, we really start seeing his style explode. You get the doodler, you get holy chevrons, where you get lots of chevrons and different textures by bringing in mohair. You have the striped eschin. which I think is a gorgeous shawl. I haven't done that one yet. I love Exploration Station. I love dotted rays and the different versions of dotted rays. So you can see he really starts playing with shapes and with colors and with different stitch combinations coming together that really creates an interesting aesthetic where, now today, like just in this past month, he has come out with Twists and Turns. Right before that, Shawl Smorgasbord, the Basket Weave Shawl, Branching Brioche, which is this giant brioche blanket, and then this Aurora Cabin Shawl. Oh my God, have you seen this? I mean, look at the stitch pattern, the slip stitches on this pattern. I mean, those are just, this is one that I think would be a lot of fun to knit. I think it'd be really interesting. It's a 5 skein shawl. So this is one that I kind of want to maybe attack in 2023 at some point, but really, really, really like it. Okay, so what am I saying? I'm saying I've come to really appreciate his design approach and his design aesthetic, which seems to be to keep the that some of his designs are going to be one thing that's the same over and over and over again. One second. Husband on his way home. So I love that he tries to keep his shawls and his patterns interesting with different stitches or different colors or different textures as he designs. So it's more fun for him to design, more fun for us to knit, and becomes really interesting to look at as well. So that, I think, is one of the reasons I enjoy his patterns. They're usually, in most cases, very well written, and the only thing that kind of drives me crazy is that sometimes they are expensive especially if you're going to use good merino wools or some of your more your nice hand dyeds that you might have. It can get a little pricey to do some of these, like 5 skeins of yarn. We're talking between $25 and $30 a skein. That gets kind of expensive. That's like $100 shawl just in materials. So I get it. It can be an expensive investment for some of these schlankets that he designs. But you could also do a Boneyard or Meadowlouse or there's lots of different ways you can make it less expensive. You could even do it in acrylic. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay. So there's something else that I've heard some folks say, especially younger designers or people that are just starting out, that they're like, oh my God, Stephen West, he's so good. He's so amazing. His designs, like, I don't know how he's able to come out with all these designs. And we kind of put, we look at the same, we do the same with some of our others, like Andrea Mowry. There's lots of other amazing designers out there that we, in a sense, put up on a pedestal. Like Joji Locatelli comes to mind. We put them on a pedestal and say, oh my God, they're so amazing. I could never do that. And as soon as you say that, you basically put into the universe that, no, you could never do that. And as long as you keep that mindset, you can never do that. But here's a thought. And this is not original to me, and I'm going to play a short video for you that kind of alerted me to this concept. Don't put these designers on a pedestal as an excuse not to move forward as a designer, to let yourself off the hook from being extraordinary. One could take that in a lot of different ways, or look at that in a lot of different ways as well. Not just from even if you're not a designer, don't let the fact that Stephen West is extremely popular, is very accomplished at design, very well known for his designs. Don't let that be an excuse either not to attempt his designs. Don't let it be an excuse not to attempt your own designs. When you see somebody else that knits it in an amazing way, don't let that be an excuse not to jump and do something amazing of your own. Here I am shaking the camera. Don't let that be an excuse to hold you back, is by holding someone else, putting someone else up on a pedestal, or saying that they're extraordinary when they're not any more extraordinary than you are. It's just they've chosen to take the leap that you maybe not have taken yet. So let me just play this little clip, and we'll come back and sort of wrap this sort of conversation up. And feel free to add some of your ideas and thoughts in the show notes below, or in the comments below. I just realized I really haven't given you the context of what I'm about to show you. So this is a clip from On Leadership with Scott Miller. It is a podcast that I watch on a regular basis. And in this podcast, he is interviewing Lisa Bilyeu, who is an entrepreneur, someone who started, I believe it was Quest nutrition bars. Really never heard of them, but apparently they're a big deal. And she's also a very big motivational speaker. In this interview, she's being interviewed about a book that she wrote called Radical Confidence. But this clip is not specifically about the book. So take a listen and take a watch. It's very interesting what her experience is. And I think, and for me, it applies very strongly to this view of seeing people as extraordinary.
Thank you. That's actually really important for me to address. So first of all, the notion that I'm unrelatable, the quote that changed my life, and I want you guys to lean in right now, because this quote was from Lisa Nichols, one of the most incredible motivational speakers. And she said, "Don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook." I'm just going to take a beat and repeat that. Don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook. Now, she said this in a moment. I'm listening to her. My husband was interviewing her. And before I was ever in front of the camera, I was sitting in the audience, and I was executive producer of a show. And I'm sitting there watching Lisa Nichols and my husband talk. And she says, as she's talking, I'm like, oh my God, she's so amazing. Oh my God, she's so amazing. I could never do that. She's so amazing. She says this. So as I'm thinking it, she's literally like, don't do that. Don't make me extraordinary to say you can't try. That's giving you an out. And so I actually want to address the reason why I wrote the book is that very notion is that I don't want people to think that how I got here is because I have an extraordinary spark. It's because all of a sudden or I was born with confidence, or I was born with this incredible self-esteem. It's like, oh God, no. Even when I wrote the book, when a literary agent approached me last year, I'd already built and sold $1 billion company. I'd already built our studio that has over 500 million views on our content. And when someone approached me to write a book, the very first words out of my mouth were, who on earth would buy a book from me? And it's imperative that I say that out loud, that you guys hear me. Because just to Lisa Nichols' point, don't make me extraordinary. That won't serve you. What will serve you is to look at the vulnerability, to look at where I started, to look at how crippling my negative voice is still to this day, and look at the tactics I use to get myself out. So thank you so much for actually saying that, because that is so important to me, that people don't see me as being unrelatable. And then to your next thing, the reason sorry, Stu.
No, please keep going.
Don't make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook. It's a really great quote, and I really like the sentiment behind that. Spoken by a quote from Lisa Nichols, motivational speaker. This is not Lisa Bilyeu, but the person who did this quote. A rags to riches type of story. So check her out, Lisa Nichols. I'll maybe link to a couple of things in below if I remember to do that. But I think that's an interesting thing to think about, that we often put people on a pedestal, not just because we think that they're amazing or outstanding or, masters in their field. But I think sometimes we do that to let ourselves off the hook, to be able to say, I could never be that good. So, we kind of create that barrier of that, that's excellence, and I'm something less than that. And that's a way of saying, I could never do that, and so I don't push myself to do those things that might actually truly equal up to that level of excellence. Regardless of what it is you're doing, don't let somebody else's success limit your striving to be successful. Something I need to remember for myself as well. Because many times in my life, I have limited myself because I've said, oh, look at what they are, this other person, I could never do that. Now, it very well may be true. To look at Itzhak Perlman as a violinist and say, I could never do that. Well, that is true as long as I consider the fact that I've never tried to be a virtuoso violinist. Does that mean it could never happen? Well, if I put in hours and hours of practice to learn the craft, to and constantly strive to improve myself in that craft, then yeah, I probably could attain a level similar to an Itzhak Perlman or a Joshua Bell. But given that, they're probably not as accomplished a knitter as I am. I think I can say that. I've never seen any of their knitting, so I don't know if they knit. But one could say, I'm an accomplished knitter, and they'll never reach my level in the world of knitting. Now, am I the pinnacle of knitting? Oh, hell no. But does it bring me joy? Does it bring other people joy? I'm going to say yes, it brings me joy. And I believe that when I give my knitting projects away to other people, it brings them joy. They wear them. I've seen people wear them. And not just because they're coming to see me, but I've seen them in pictures and I've seen them out and about in projects that I've knit. And I'm like, that to me, that tells me that that's something that they enjoy and that they valued. So anyway, that's just a thought for you as you look at what your projects as a knitter, your projects as a designer, your projects as a yarn dyer. Don't put other people on a pedestal and say you can never be that good, because The answer is yes, you can. And it's all, if that's where you want to go, if that's where you want to put your energies, if that's what you value, go for it. Be the next extraordinary you that you can be. All right, so thus endeth the lesson. What have I been listening to? What have I been knitting to, I should say? Maybe that's what I'll call this new section. What am I knitting to? I have been re-listening to an audiobook by, it's actually an audiobook series, or a book series called Fledgling God by Michael Taggart. It's a series of books, male fantasy romance type books. Excuse me. And, I got to get to the... Can't remember all of the titles. Trying to use this darn tool is a little challenging. So it started with Misfit Mage. Second book is Melee Mage. Third book is Gathering Mage. And the fourth book is Buried Mage. And I think there's more to come. Basically, there is this young man, probably early to mid-20s, learns that he is a mage, has magical power, and has an awakening moment that is extremely violent, that launches him into the world of mages. He is rescued by a particular house of mages in Louisville, Kentucky. And the series is about him coming to terms with his magic, learning about his magic, and also learning how he is different from other mages, it makes it very, very interesting. Now, of course, the title of the series is Fledgling God, which of course gives you the understanding of where the storyline is going, is that he's not just a mage, that he's more than that apparently he is a fledgling god. So interesting concept, interesting story. I really have enjoyed these stories as I've read them. I am on the third book again, Gathering Mage. So if you're interested, if you like, especially if you like Michael Taggart as an author, these are really good. So check those out. I'll put some links in the show notes around those for Audible podcasts or Audible book series. And so I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. It's almost at an hour, and I haven't done an hour's worth of sitting and talking to you guys for a long time. So I hope it's not too long. Anyway, thanks for coming by. Check out all of my links to all of my social media. It's going to be in the links below. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about what I chatted about with you today. How well do you like Stephen West patterns, from a visual standpoint or from a knitting standpoint? Anyway, thanks for joining me today. May you have peace in your home and the fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Until next time.